You talked about the resources that are available to startups today. And I want you to sort of think back to, what was it, 2003, when you co-founded Palantir. You think about the environment today in the VC space for startups. You think that Palantir would have been able to grow in the way it did, scale in the way it did, and raise funds easier in today's environment? Or you think it's the opposite?
Well, it's an interesting question. In terms of the talents, we were able to, we got a lot of the top, we'd measure who the top 10, you can't always be right, but you'd get who are the top 10 top talent technologists coming out of the top schools were, and going to these PhD programs. We got a lot of really amazing people who these days it would have been a lot harder, because a lot of them would have started their own companies. And so, because there's a lot more capital to start your own company. And then there were people back then, 2005, 6, 7, I'd meet, who were thinking of starting their own company. We convinced them, listen, come join us instead. And when you get this critical mass of amazing people, you're going to learn from them. It's growing so quickly. And so I think today it would have been harder to get all the same talent in one place. The other thing though is Palantir would have been built technologically, would have been a lot easier to build Palantir. Like, this was right before the whole cloud even came out. There are a lot of tools we had to create for ourselves that then eventually the market created for everyone else, and 10 or 15 years later. And so Palantir would have been a lot faster to build, but it would have been a lot harder to get the same talent. So, back then it was very hard to raise money for Palantir. I had a lot of conversations with venture capitalists that said, Joe, why aren't you guys doing like Web 2.0? That's where all the cool stuff is, right? This is like the early days of Facebook and LinkedIn and all these, Web 2.0 companies. Like, what are you guys doing working on government problems? That's not how you make money. So it was very hard to raise money, and that part would have been easier, but the talent would have been harder, and the building would have been easier. So it's hard to know the counterfactual of what would have happened if Palantir hadn't been built, but it definitely was probably more of a slog back then.